What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome to Not Your Status Quo. Tonight, we're talking Fallout, mainly what's next for the amazing series on Prime. And to talk what's next for the Fallout series, we really need to look at each of the main characters, Maximus, Lucy, the Ghoul, and where their stories are going.
Keith, I am super excited considering what, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, we got news that this series had already been renewed for season two. And I can only imagine the different types of stories that they have left to tell. They kind of left it off on a bit of a cliffhanger with Lucy's dad walking up in his stolen power armor to what we assume, based on the looks, is New Vegas from, you'll never get this, Fallout New Vegas.
And we can talk a little bit more about New Vegas in a little bit, but let's start with the characters. For Maximus, we see the Brotherhood of Steel chanting his name at the end because they think he basically rescued that artifact from the new California Republic. And what I think is going to happen is he is going to let that power, unfortunately, go to his head a little bit. I think it's going to corrupt him, and I think he's going to be using it in what he thinks is for good, to find Lucy, to hopefully move back into the vault with her. But that power is going to corrupt him, and I think he's going to go on a spree of not nice things because we saw he wanted to steal that fusion core, from Vault 4, leave them to be just so he could have his armor. But Lucy kind of talked him out of it. So I think without that, moral, companion with him, I think he's going to fall into some bad habits.
I really think that you're right, that that is probably the direction that they're going to end up going with Maximus. He did seem like he ultimately wanted to live a nice peaceful life, move back into the vault, be with Lucy, but I almost wonder if that's what Lucy wants at this point. I almost wonder if her ideals of what a nice, perfect, peaceful life in a vault, if that's changed. And one thing that I was concerned about is that Prime or Amazon or, the folks that are making this, I was worried that they would kind of follow in the footsteps of the Star Wars sequel and move Maximus's character into an almost obsessive nature over Lucy, where now his prime mission is less about, dealing with the aftermath of the Brotherhood, finding this piece of technology, and now it's going to be fully encompassed with chasing after Lucy.
I think you're right, Doug. And I worry that it might not only him chasing her, but maybe not just to move into the vault with her. He might be upset that she left him because he doesn't know what went down while he was unconscious after being attacked, by Lucy's dad in the power armor. So he may think she took off without me, and he may be seeking maybe a little revenge, especially if he finds out she left with the Ghoul.
Right, right. You bring up a very good point. He could be wondering. I mean, having been knocked out, yeah, he wasn't really present for that. The only thing that he's going to know upon waking up is, oh, I'm being lauded as this hero, and now I can officially be a knight in the Brotherhood of Steel. Now, who's to say that that doesn't end up corrupting him? We know a little bit, having played the games, we know what the Brotherhood can be when they have, full power, when they decide they're going to essentially invade wherever they are. We know that the Pridwin flew in to this area, this part of California, that was originally in the East, that was in Boston in the Commonwealth. And when they were there, they proclaimed loudly from their speakers, "Do not fear, we are the Brotherhood of Steel," as they then jumped out of their vertibirds and invaded the Commonwealth and destroyed anything they didn't like. Now, who's to say that Maximus, being alone, doesn't decide that, hey, maybe the Brotherhood's right. Maybe these people are monsters. Maybe I do need to hunt down and destroy ghouls and everything else. And that brings to mind, what about his friend? His friend that ended up having to run off because he took that medication to cure himself, and he realized, wait a minute, I might be a ghoul now.
That is, I think you might be a ghoul.
Oh, no. Oh, so stupid. I should have never trusted a doctor that smelled like that.
And if he is in fact a ghoul, or even if that was the FEV and he's becoming a super mutant, either way, the Brotherhood is going to hate him. They will hunt him. Will Maximus be given the mission to hunt down his former friend?
That's a great point, Doug. He may have to hunt him down and kill him, and knowing what everything he went through, he's either going to be a ghoul or you're right, he's going to be a super mutant. And that's two things we didn't see in this first season was super mutants and death claws. And I've heard that we're definitely seeing death claws in season 2, and I hope we see a few super mutants. But the problem is, anyone who's played Fallout New Vegas knows that it wasn't as radiated as some of the other areas we've seen, like Washington, D.C. and Boston. So we may not get super mutants next season, but we may get them further down the line.
According to an article from The Wrap, co-showrunner Graham Wagner actually said that there was a good reason why they didn't want to bring Deathclaws into the first season, primarily because they didn't want to front load the first season with all of the good stuff. But I remember there was also another article in an interview stating that they wanted to wait until it was better. And if you all remember, and also you can watch our playlist by clicking up here, if you remember when we were talking about the Terminator movies, that was also something that they had stated when making that movie. The reason why they didn't do a liquid metal Terminator in the first movie is the technology wasn't there to kind of catch up and make it look right. And that could be the same thing that they're dealing with this show. It could be that they might have designed a Death Claw, but maybe it looks too video gamey and they want to make it look more menacing, more real, like the kind of terror that it's supposed to strike.
All right, let's get to Lucy. Now knowing what she knows about her dad in Vault-Tec, I think traveling with the Ghoul and his knowledge of history from before the Great War, she's going to learn a lot about her dad, a lot about Vault-Tec, what Vault-Tec did, and she's going to become more and more like the Ghoul, because we did see her shoot her mom in the season finale, which she was horrified when she saw the Ghoul put that other Ghoul kind of out of his misery. So I think, she's kind of turning over to that side just a bit. But I think in the end, her goodness is going to come out. She's going to remember who she was and how she was brought up. And I think that might influence the Ghoul a little bit too. And not too much. I mean, after all the BS he has been through. But I think they will form a bond on their travel to New Vegas.
I agree with that. I think that it's going to help her kind of open up and understand exactly what the wasteland is really like. She's going to have to come to terms quickly with this isn't the peace-loving, everybody gets along, and there really isn't any argument and bad times, like it was in the vault. Up in the wasteland, she's already had to deal with people running after her, a robot trying to harvest her organs.
I'm simply going to harvest your organs.
Huh?
And she was enemies, if you will, with the Ghoul at first, but now I think they do have similar missions in mind, right? They've got a united sort of goal that they're after. And yeah, I think she does need to have her eyes opened with what Vault-Tec was really doing. But I also think she's going to find out that it wasn't just Vault-Tec that was out here basically creating what we know from the Fallout games, this horrifying wasteland. But a lot of these other companies, like the Nuka-Cola Company, Robco, since we're probably going to be visiting New Vegas, it's very possible that we'll encounter Robert House and or whatever he did to the Mojave Wasteland.
And Doug, while we're talking about Fallout New Vegas, there are multiple possible endings for the game. One, you can side with Mr. House. He's basically a guy from pre-war times, much like, Lucy's dad and stuff. And basically he has an override chip to upgrade his Securitron army.
The Platinum chip was printed in Sunnyvale, California on October 22nd, 2077, the day before the Great War. The chip contained vital software upgrades, but not just for my Securitrons. Every aspect of the missile defense grid would have been upgraded too.
You can also kind of take control of Mr. House's network and take this over for yourself. You could also sign with the New California Republic. Or you could side with Caesar's Legion, who is kind of a group there also that you can side with. And I think the one that makes the most sense is Mr. House. Because one, I don't think they would have a canon ending be the player because everyone plays differently, plays different characters. So it wouldn't make sense to make that a canon ending. And for the show, the way it's going, having the NCR kind of win it all doesn't make sense because Lucy's father wouldn't be traveling there because he's kind of at odds with the NCR. But having a third party like Mr. House, who has had conflicts with the NCR, while he may not be allies with him, they have a common enemy. And so they may team up, share some information, and go along their ways.
Keith, you are about to make the internet so mad at you. How dare you suggest anything is a specific way about Fallout New Vegas? But no, I have to agree with you. I think for the purposes of this TV show, it does make the most sense to go with the Mr. House ending. Is he a good guy? No, not at all. But is he what is probably needed for the Mojave Wasteland? Most likely he may be the best thing for it, considering he's able to bring electricity and water to New Vegas. Now, does he siphon things from the local populace? Yeah, maybe a little bit. And does he also have a casino full of former cannibals? We don't talk about that. But yeah, I do think that's probably the most canon ending, especially since we find what's left of the NCR in LA in the Fallout TV show. So it's unlikely that the NCR has any sort of real holding. And I would pray that they would not go with Caesar's Legion, the group that crucifies people, literally, as the canon ending for Fallout New Vegas, because that would be, I mean, the Wasteland's already horrifying enough. Let's not make it even worse.
What do you got against Caesar's Legion, man? Come on. And I think New Vegas is just a stop and not the end destination, since it wasn't really a Vault Tech stronghold. But Mr. House probably has information that Lucy's dad needs, and maybe the same information will help the Ghoul find his family. And since we know that not only did Vault Tech have a HQ in Los Angeles, but also one in Washington, D.C. So I think we're going to see our friends on the road to D.C. maybe the next couple seasons, but at least after their stop in New Vegas.
You know what? That does make sense. I was wondering the same thing when they were showing Hank approaching New Vegas. I'm like, that can't really be like the final stop. There's so much more, and I think it would be in their best interest rather than sort of using nostalgia bait and retreading old grounds. I think what would be a better choice is actually give us a new state that we haven't seen before, a new area, a new wasteland. This could be the opportunity for Lucy and Maximus and even Hank and the Ghoul and all of our characters to wander into a new place that hasn't been covered by the games yet and see what the rest of the people are doing. Heck, you know what I would love to see in our home state of Michigan? I want to see what happened to Detroit after the Great War.
You know, there was a lot of talk that Fallout 5 could have been Detroit, but I think it might be better to see it in this show because we know there's going to be a lot of bombs hitting Detroit because of their ability to make tanks and other things that they could do post-nuclear war to continue the war. So I would love to see it in Fallout Season 3, Season 2, wherever it's going to be. I just want more Fallout. I can't wait for Season 2.
The rest of the world agrees with you, Keith. Have you seen the numbers for the show? It is doing so well. So many people have been watching it. And, you know, I don't want to I don't want to curse us, but it seems like video game based TV shows are finally being done right, except for Halo, but we don't talk about that. But Fallout, it has been amazing. The Last of Us has been amazing. I am falling in love with these characters and all the potential storylines. You know, we talked about where Maximus might end up, and we talked about where Lucy might end up. And since she's with the Ghoul, you know, we kind of think that they'll most likely stick together for at least a little while, but it wouldn't really be Fallout without our main character switching to a different companion. I mean, you got to get those companion perks, right?
Doug, you're absolutely right. I think we're going to see multiple companions. I think the Ghoul may get the information he is needing in New Vegas when they stop there, and he's going to go a different way from Lucy because where his family is might not be where Lucy's dad is going. And you know what? Everyone who's played a Fallout game knows you need new companions all the time. You need dog meat for a while. You need some other people. You get better perks for maybe fighting super mutants or fighting some sea monsters. So we're definitely going to see a change in her companion throughout this series.
One question that I think has gone unanswered, and I really need the second season to tell us, and I'm curious what your theories are, Keith, but I want to know more about Moldaver. Now, we did see that she died at the end of season 1. Spoilers, sorry, but I want to see how she even got there to begin with. We know that she wasn't a Vault Tech employee, so she probably wasn't frozen in Vault 31 like the rest of the Vault Tech employees and management that were, destined to take over the wasteland. So where was she at? Where was she being? Is she perhaps a clone? Was she cryogenically frozen elsewhere? Is she some sort of new type of ghoul or some kind of mutant? Because I want to know, how this pre-war individual that our ghoul friend knew, how she's now in the future, 200 years later.
And not only how she survived, but how she became friends with Lucy's mom. I think that could be a very important story point going through. And I'm sure there are other cryogenic chambers elsewhere because we do know Mr. House from Fallout New Vegas wasn't a part of Vault-Tec, but was still able to survive, 200 years after the Great War.
If survive, you mean becoming a California raisin, then sure.
Well, I guess surviving means he was still alive.
Not after my playthrough.
Yeah, not mine either. I ended up doing it myself. I took it over. I didn't want to leave the power to Mr. House. So, we know that's not going to be the canon ending, but I was like, I'm not leaving it to this guy. I want to live in the lap of luxury in New Vegas and have control over all these robots. I want to steal water and food from my citizens to, make myself better. I'm not a good person.
Well, speaking of not good people, we still need to know what about the rest of Vault-Tec? See, one thing that this show did is I'm not going to say that it changed canon events, but it does seem to have kind of wibbly wobbled them a little bit because most folks were led to believe that Vault-Tec was working in conjunction with the US government, which became the Enclave, and that the point of all the vaults was to test humans under a bunch of different stressful situations to prepare them to eventually be sent to Mars, where they were going to start a colony there. That was what the original storyline was, or at least that, I believe that Interplay had developed. I don't know if Bethesda followed along with that as well, but that was the essential storyline, that all of the experiments were being done by Vault-Tec.
What I love about the Vault experiments is it gave a purpose to Vault-Tec other than, well, let's save a tiny fraction of the American population and then release them back into a radioactive dead zone. That's the thing that doesn't make any sense. Making the vaults technological experimental beds with a purpose towards making a multi-generational starship to take our best and brightest away from Earth if there's a nuclear war, that made sense. So that's what we wrote down. I can't speak to how they've been designed and developed since then, but I never view them through the lens of, look at these wacky experiments. Each one I was like, yeah, I can see how that would help make a starship. You can think of the Enclave as evil or wacky or whatever you want, but there was originally a purpose for that, for all of this stuff.
Now we come to find out that that isn't entirely true. Now we know that Vault-Tec got a lot of these other companies involved. They got Robert House's Robco. They got Big Mountain. They got West Tech. They got all of these other big companies in Fallout involved and told them, hey, if you back us, if you sponsor us, then we'll give you your own vaults and you can run whatever experiments you want.
We have over 100 vaults spread across America. Enough for each of you to claim several, where you can play out your own ideas for how to create the perfect conditions for humanity, whatever you want to do. No one needs to know.
But to me, that seems almost a little pointless. Like it was more about the fun that these big CEOs could have on experimenting with people rather than there being some sort of purpose regardless of how psychotic and evil it actually was. And trust me, I'm not saying that any of these experiments were good. I am not pro experimenting on people in vaults. But what I am saying is it seems like there used to be a purpose, and now it seems like because it's fun.
And, that could still be canon and still make that meeting between Vault-Tec and all those other companies true, because they just wanted that funding from them to help do it. So they gave them, you can have your own vault to do your own experiments, but Vault-Tec still had all of theirs in working with the Enclave. So I think both of those could be true. And I think, like they said, they just needed the resources and everything else that Robco and West-Tec and all the other companies that you find there scavenge all over the, the wasteland while you're playing, pitch in.
The last thing that I want to say as far as what's next for the Fallout series is we did get some exciting news that they're actually moving the show that is set in California to be produced in California. I know that sounds crazy, but most of the work was actually done in New York and some parts were filmed in Utah. So they were given quite a substantial tax credit from the California Film Commission to move their production there. And I kind of think that's actually a good idea, especially if they're trying to recreate much of the skylines and if they plan on still having a lot of the scenes take place in California, maybe with the new California Republic making a bit of a comeback. Maybe we'll get to see a little bit more about what the Brotherhood is going to do now that they've got their hands on this new power source that is powering LA. Who's to say? So I think it's going to be interesting to actually see real California landmarks now being filmed, because as we mentioned when we were talking about shows like Andor, a lot of the best shows make use of actual locations rather than always filming in a thing like the Valium. I think the less that they rely on blue screens, green screens, and CG, and the more that they take advantage of actual physical locations, I think the better scenes actually look.
That's what we think is next. But what do you all think? Leave it in the comments down below. And please don't forget to like this video. And if you're first time watching, please subscribe.
Hey fellow nerds, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of this stuff, make sure that you check out our Twitch stream. We try to do these live every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Keep an eye on our social media to find out when you can join in live and chat with us during these live streams. Also, as usual, don't forget to check out our other social media. Add us at Twitter, comment down below, and we'll see you next time right here on Not Your Status Quo.